Hello and welcome to our lesson on understanding fractions and their position on the number line. In this lesson, we'll build on our knowledge of the number line and place value by introducing and exploring fractions. Our primary focus will be on understanding fractions and their position on the number line. Here's the plan. We'll begin by defining what fractions are and how they represent parts of a whole. Next, we'll look at how to locate and mark fractions on a number line. Finally, we will run through some examples to apply this new knowledge and reinforce our understanding. Imagine a scenario where we need to divide a piece of rope into equal parts for a project. By understanding fractions and their positions on the number line, we can easily determine precise lengths and ensure each piece is of the correct size. This knowledge is also fundamental in more advanced topics such as algebra, where fractions frequently appear. Let's get started. Let's begin by recalling what we know about the number line. The number line is a straight horizontal line that stretches infinitely in both directions. To the left of 0, we have negative numbers, -1, -2, -3, -4, and to the right of 0, we have positive numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4. Each of these numbers can be marked on the number line at equal intervals. Each of these positions represents an integer, which are whole numbers that can be positive, negative, or 0. Numbers are not just abstract concepts. They originate from real-life situations as well as mathematical ideas. We use positive integers to count and measure real-life quantities. For example, if you have 3 apples, you are using positive integers. Negative integers help us represent situations where we have a lack or debt in some quantity. For example, if I owe someone £2, I can represent this as -2. Now, we will introduce more numbers in a similar way, that is, fractions. These numbers help us represent parts of whole quantities. Imagine you have an apple and you cut it into 2 equal parts. You now have half an apple. We can express this as a fraction. Even though we started with a physical apple, we can move to an abstract concept. The idea of half can be written as the fraction 1/2. This fraction 1/2 falls between 0 and 1 on our number line. But unlike integers, it does not land on one of the main segments traditionally marked. Instead, it lies midway between 0 and 1. Since 1/2 does not fall on the integer segments, we call it a non-integer. Fractions are written in the form a/b, where a is the numerator and b is the denominator. In 1/2, the 1 is the numerator, telling us we have one part, and the 2 is the denominator, telling us the whole is divided into 2 equal parts. So when we say we have half an apple, we mean that the apple has been divided into 2 equal parts and we have one of those parts. This is directly represented by the fraction 1/2. Now that we have understood how fractions fit into the number line and the terminology involved, we are ready to mark other fractions and use them in various applications. Let's continue exploring and placing more fractions on the number line to solidify our understanding. Let's start by tackling some GCSE level questions on placing fractions on the number line. We'll begin with simpler cases and build up to more complex examples. Consider the fraction 1/2. We need to place this fraction on the number line. First, identify the whole numbers between which half lies. Since a half is less than 1 and greater than 0, it lies between 0 and 1. Next, divide the interval between 0 and 1 into 2 equal parts because the denominator of our fraction is 2. Finally, we mark the fraction. The fraction 1/2 is located exactly halfway between 0 and 1. Now let's place the fraction 3/4 on the number line. Firstly, identify the whole numbers. Similar to before, 3/4 is less than 1 and greater than 0, so it lies between 0 and 1. Next, we divide the interval. This time, divide the interval between 0 and 1 into 4 equal parts, as the denominator is 4. Finally, we count and mark the fraction. Count 3 parts from 0 to reach 3/4. Finally, let's place a negative fraction, such as -2/5, on the number line. Let's start by identifying the whole numbers. Since minus 2 over 5 is negative and greater than minus 1 but less than 0, it lies between minus 1 and 0. Next, we divide the interval. Divide the interval between minus 1 and 0 into 5 equal parts, as the denominator is 5. Finally, count 2 parts from 0 towards minus 1 to reach minus 2 over 5. By following these steps and using the diagrams to visualize, you can place any fraction accurately on the number line. This skill will aid you in understanding the size and relationships between different fractions. In today's lesson, we explored the concept of fractions and their placement on the number line. We began by recalling the structure of the number line, which includes both positive and negative integers, and discussed how these numbers are used in real life and abstract mathematical contexts. Moving forward, we introduced fractions, defining them as parts of a whole. We emphasized that fractions, unlike integers, can fall between the main segments on the number line, such as 1/2 lying between 0 and 1. We examined the notation of fractions AB, where A is the numerator indicating the number of parts, and B is the denominator indicating the total number of equal parts. By understanding the terminology of numerator and denominator, we can accurately represent parts of a whole and place them on the number line. This knowledge of fractions and their positions on the number line is crucial for comparing sizes, measuring quantities, and solving various mathematical problems. Watch the rest of the GCSE Maths course at Sophos Education.